Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Haunted Cruise. My name is Jose, and it is so good to see all of you again. It's been a while, hasn't it? Before we dived into the meat of today's episode, I did just want to take a few seconds to do a little housekeeping, a little New Year's cleaning, if you will. And part of that housekeeping was I wanted to take some time to thank everyone who has taken the time to subscribe to our channel here. We've had about 26 followers last time I'd seen it. Of course, that seems perhaps somewhat silly to bring up just starting out, but you know what? I'm thankful for every single one of those subscribers. If that's you, thank you so much because we only have we only have 2 videos on the channel, so I really appreciate you having taken the time to subscribe to the channel. If you're interested to see what we have in store, if those 2 videos were enough for you to stick around and give us that smash that subscription button or give us a like. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. You know, I'm just starting out with this, so every little bit helps, every little bit counts. And you know, the way I feel about these things is people don't have to put themselves out there. You don't have to hit that subscription button. You don't have to comment. You don't have to give us a thumbs up. So I always take it to heart when people do those things. You know, really does mean a lot to me. So I just wanted to take a little time to give everybody who's given us a follow a shout out. And if you haven't followed us yet, if you feel like that's something worth doing, then go right ahead and hit the subscribe button. Give us a like, leave a comment. I love hearing from people. I love responding back to you. So any comment that you share, I will do my best to respond back to you. In addition to everybody who's subscribed to the channel, I wanted to, of course, extend my thanks to some of the lovely other content creators of the booktube world who have kind of accepted me with open arms thus far. I'm talking about Juan from Plagued by Visions, Alex from the Bookubus. Just been so very kind in extending their open arms and allowing me into this community, and even putting themselves out there by agreeing to participate in some of the things we have planned for this channel, namely the Page to Scream book club, which if you haven't heard about that, go ahead and follow the card to take you to that video. It's going to actually be coming up in just another few weeks here, our first book club meeting where we examine a horror novel or work of literature of some kind that was eventually adapted into a movie. And January's pick is Psycho by Robert Bloch, of course adapted by Alfred Hitchcock in 1960. So we're going to be talking the book and the movie on January 28th, if I've got my dates right, the last Friday of the month. So you still have plenty of time to join in if you're interested in doing that. I talked about a bunch of ways that you could get access to the book in that Page to Scream announcement video. So go ahead and give that a watch and see if you can join us. And even if you don't necessarily watch the book or even watch the book or read the movie, this is going great. If you don't necessarily read the book or watch the movie leading up to the event, you don't even necessarily have to do that. You can just come in, check out the conversation. So, Page to Scream Book Club, January 28th. Juan's going to be joining us for that. Alex from the Bookubus said that she might include it in her monthly wrap-up. And Regina from Regina's Haunted Library just commented and said that she was interested in joining the book club as well. So thank you, Regina. And again, thank you, everyone who's been so welcoming in these first few weeks of this channel coming to light. So I gotta say, 2022. These last few weeks have been a long year, huh? So I don't know what it's been like for everybody else. I hope and I pray that your year has gotten off to a great start and it's full of promise and great things to come. It's been a little rough going for us in the Cruz household. Just last week, we had to say goodbye to our beloved dog, Minnie, who had lived with us for the last close to 5 years. So that has been a pretty rough going. And one of the reasons why this channel hasn't been updated perhaps as frequently as I first envisioned it uh, and described in my intro video, just because that was something that, especially over the course of the holidays, was becoming more and more apparent. And then, as I said, just the other week, we had to say goodbye to her. So it's never an easy thing. If anybody else has gone through that recently or gone through that at any point in time, I'm sorry. It's rough. She was a big part of our family, and we miss her dearly. And so, not to get this video off on too much of a downer, just wanted to let you all know that the year hasn't started off in the best way for us, but if nothing else, it has helped us be thankful for just the time that we do have with our loved ones, be they four-legged or two-legged. 5 years didn't seem like enough time to spend with Minnie. She was just an incredible companion. I wish we could have had more time with her, but at the same time, I'm incredibly thankful for the time that we did get to spend with her. She absolutely changed our lives, and I'll probably always be thinking about her. And if you have a beloved four-legged friend or companion in your own home, I wish you and them all the best. I hope you have many, many years left with your four-legged companions. And if you find yourself in a similar position as we did over the last month or so, just do your best. This is turning into an advice column, I guess, but just do your best. Whatever the best is you feel in that given moment, because so much of it, in the end, no matter what happens, you will probably always feel like you didn't do enough. So in a way, that feeling is unfortunately inevitable. But moving past that and getting a little distance from the event itself or that extended period of time, getting a little distance from it, I think you will find, as I am trying to find, that from step to step, we did everything that we could to the best of our knowledge. And as long as you're there for them and you're there with them, that's all anybody can ask of you, and that's really all you can ask of yourself. So a little bit of an unexpected path that we've just trod in the beginning of this episode, but just wanted to get real with you all for a little moment, if you didn't mind that too much, and just let you know that we're all in this together. These things are never easy. Our years don't always get off on the best start, no matter what resolutions we've made for ourselves. So that's just the reality, and letting you know what the reality of my personal situation has been. Again, I hope that's not true for anybody else to one degree or another, but if it is, just keep doing what you're doing. And if you feel that you need someone to talk to, please, extend yourself to those who are already closest to you, your family, your friends. If you're, seeking counsel, then great. I kind of wish I was. Not yet, but you never know. The way this year's going, anything's possible. But yeah, extend yourself to the people who are closest to you. If you feel safer extending yourself to folks, say, over the internet, whether that's through this channel or other social media mediums, then if that's what you feel safe doing, then go ahead and do that. Do whatever feels right. That's really all it comes down to. Do whatever feels right for the betterment of your mental health and well-being. So like I said, a little bit of an advice column that this just turned into, but like I said, the best laid plans. Thought this video would have a little bit of a different tone getting started, but reality has different plans for us sometimes. So just wanted to share a little bit of practical advice that I've been trying to take myself, helping in whatever small way I can by sharing from my own personal experience. So, like we said, 2022 has been a little bit of a rough go so far. So, I find what I myself, and I think a lot of people do in times of this, is we go back, we withdraw, which has its benefits, and, as in everything else, moderation is key, right? But I find that going back to sources of comfort can be very, very important in times like this. And of course, one of the ultimate sources of comfort are things from the past, things from our past that, having that distance, we are able to look at through rose tinted glasses, or they were truly just nice things that happened to us and we enjoy cherishing those memories. But before we launch into it proper, I need you to do a few things. I need you to grab your little envelope of moolah from your parents or your caregivers. You need that. I need you to grab your backpack, okay? Because this is going to be a big haul that we're doing here, all right? I need you to grab your backpack, and I need you to grab your catalog that has that lovely checklist on the back where you have marked off all the purchases that you're interested in making. Oh, you wanted to know where you were going to be making some purchases? Let me tell you. It's called the School Book Scare. Haha! Animated intro. It's fun, right? This is the first in the series called School Book Scare, where we go back and we take a look at some of the weird and creepy books that used to not only haunt the shelves of our school book fairs, but also our school libraries, because obviously the school library was the best place for you to find some kind of long forgotten dusty tome that freaked you out, or that maybe you just saw the cover of and you never went back to read. Well, that is what this series is devoted to. And then of course, being the age that I am, I don't know if you can see, but I have a Midnight Society t-shirt on today. Being the age that I am, pretty much pure millennial, when we talk creepy books, when we talk weird books, when we talk book fairs, there is one series that dominates all others when it comes to this particular mood and genre. And with the School Book Scare series, this has been an idea that I've had for a while about going back and looking at these books. I've had it for a long time. It's taken on different forms over the years. The most recent attempt was to do it as a blog, really going back to my old school roots, to do it as a blog where we covered these books in detail. Fell out of love with the idea of blogging just because I realized that's not where my mojo was at anymore. So we're looking at reframing it within the context of this YouTube channel. But when I started doing it as a blog, I actually laid out in text that I was not going to be focusing on this series. I was going to devote my time examining lesser known works, but perhaps no less beloved works of creepy kid fiction from the early aughts, the 90s, the 80s, and earlier. I did not want to get bogged down with discussion of this series, because this series is everywhere. The merchandising alone, I mean, my gosh, the lunchboxes, the apparel, the school supplies, the TV shows, and of course now it's just bigger than ever. It's still going. It's a behemoth. Nothing can stop it. And of course, when I'm talking about all this, I'm talking about one series in particular, and that is Christopher Pike's Spooksville. I'm just kidding. I'm not talking about Spooksville. That would be ridiculous. It's Spine Chiller Mysteries. But of course, you saw the title of this video. I'm not talking about any of those. We're talking about Goosebumps, of course. Goosebumps. Little known series, maybe you've heard of it. It's kind of a little piece of outsider art, so I'm not too sure how familiar all of you out there are with it. But Goosebumps. And you're probably wondering, why were you being such a cranky bastard by not devoting time to talking about this series on your blog, Jose? And were you actually considering not doing that for your YouTube channel now? What's the matter with you? Everybody talks about Goosebumps. Well, that's just it exactly. Everybody talks about Goosebumps. There are fan pages, there are book clubs, there are podcasts, there are other YouTube channels that review Goosebumps ad nauseum. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, Goosebumps was a huge part of my life. Goosebumps really is the reason I got into reading at all. No joke. Because what I would do, as a kid, I kind of already knew that I had a predilection for creepy stuff, even before I was even really aware of media in general. I kind of already had an inkling that I liked this stuff. I liked the image of a ramshackle haunted house on the hill with the moon, framed by the full moon, with the bats fluttering out of the windows and the wolves howling in the night. There was just something about that whole landscape that really appealed to me. And again, this was before I really even started engaging with media of this type. So it was just kind of that was just kind of how I was chemically set up. I was predisposed to liking this stuff. And so, naturally, even before I was able to read, I knew about Goosebumps. I heard about it from older friends and relations who were reading it, and so I knew these were creepy books. And what I would actually do was, before I was even able to read them myself, I would ask my older friends who were able to read to actually flip to the back of the Goosebumps books where it had the whole series checklist, and I would ask them and beg with them to read the titles to me. And I would sit there and I would listen to them read me the titles of these books, and I would basically just dream up what the stories behind these titles could possibly be about. And I guess that was also a very early indicator that I had an interest in stories, making stories, listening to stories, thinking about stories. So kind of found out a lot about myself just through that very early exposure to the series before I was able to even fully engage with it. And then what happened was that come about third grade, I was determined, I am going to read these books. So I checked out 2 books from the school library, and it feels like over the course of the summer, I forced myself to read these books because reading was hard for me. It did not come naturally. It felt like work. It felt like just slinging wet cement or beating your head against a brick wall. Use whatever metaphor you want. But it was tough. It was not as easy as sitting there and watching the TV and having the story unfold for you. And by extension, it didn't feel as enjoyable. But I was so determined to find out what the stories behind those enticing titles were that I powered through line by line, word by word, these 2 Goosebumps books. And at the end, I felt exhausted, but it was also a little bit of an exhilaration because I made it through the books. I felt like I had gotten most of what was happening in the story, enough to say, yes, I read the book and I have a sense of what happened. And it was pretty much go time from there. I couldn't get enough of them. And that was how I became a reader. It was thanks to Goosebumps. So say what you will about the series, say what you will about the writing, and trust me, we will say plenty about it, don't you worry. It changed my life. So I have to give props to Goosebumps, props to Mr. Robert Lawrence Stine for his huge amount of work, so to speak. And so it is with all of that in mind that I felt in bringing School Book Scare to the Haunted Cruise channel, I feel like I do owe something to Goosebumps. If not necessarily the method that many other channels or podcasts employ where they go book by book and talk about each title in detail, if not necessarily that, I can do something else to honor them and to reminisce about them. Because as I said, these books were a huge source of comfort for me. And whether that's now in this present moment that you find yourself needing comfort, that's something really nice to be able to go back to. So that is what we are doing today. We are going back to the original 62 Goosebumps books by R.L. Stine. And what I am going to do is I am going to recount each one by memory. So I'm not going to be rereading these books. This is not a reading vlog, and just running through them. And what we're actually going to be doing is I'm going to, introduce the title. We're going to read the front and back taglines. I'm going to read the back copy on the book, the little plot summary that was on the back cover, because those are so much fun. I really think there's an art to the plot summary that you find on book sleeves or back covers, because those are what essentially entice you to read the book. If not the first page or the first line or your familiarity with the author, that's what really grabs you. So I think there's an art to them. So we're going to be reading those. I'm going to be doing it in my best theatrical manner, putting my 4 years of high school thespian society to use here. So reading those back copies, and we're going to add some fun elements too. With those taglines, I'm going to see if I can dream up on the spot a better, or perhaps a more interesting, or maybe even a worse tagline, probably a worse tagline for each book. And I'm also going to see if I can remember the twist, because as we all know, every Goosebumps book ended with a twist. So I'm going to see if I can actually remember how each book ended. So we're going to see how it goes. So you pretty much have to just take my word that this is all from memory. If there are outside influencing factors that have aided me in my recounting of these details, I'll admit that. If it's a case where I rewatched one of the TV episodes, so that's really how I remember the story, not so much from reading the book. If I recognize that, then I will mention it. But this is just kind of meant to be a fun run through of the entire series, going book by book, reading a little bit of it, recounting some memories, and just having an all-around good time. So, before we really dived into that, I did want to give a shout out to Mr. Troy Steele. Troy Steele, if you don't already know, is the author behind the site Blogger Beware. It's an older blogger website that pretty much did what so many others have done in the years since. Troy recounted all of the Goosebumps books, the original 62, as well as some others on his blog. Fantastic writer, incredibly funny, and handily enough, he actually reproduced all of the taglines and the back copy from the 62 books on his site for each of his reviews, and that came in very handy for me because, believe it or not, despite my devotion to the series and my love for it, I don't own all original 62 Goosebumps books. I'm not Cameron Chaney, I don't I don't have a vast library of these books at my disposal, so to have found those might have been a little difficult. So I really have to thank Troy for doing the heavy-duty work, not only in reviewing all these books, but in reproducing that material to help aid and abet, if you will, me in this video. So thank you, Troy. And if you haven't already checked out Blogger Beware, it's a defunct site essentially now. It hasn't been updated in some years, but it's still up, and it's a treasure trove of really hilarious commentary for all of these books. Highly recommend that you check it out. We'll include the link in the description below. So as we go through these books, I did also want to open it up to all of you who watch this video to comment, of course. Let me know if I got something wrong. There's a pretty good chance that that may happen, or I may misconstrue it with another series, or any number of things. So let me know if I got something wrong. Let me know what you remember of these books. That was really what I would love to hear. What special memories do you have of certain books? Because you never know. Somebody out there may have a memory of like a really second tier or third tier Goosebumps book that's not necessarily Monster Blood or Night of the Living Dummies. Somebody may have a really vivid memory of How I Learned to Fly. My apologies if you do. So let us know that in the comments. I'd love to hear your recollections of this series or titles in particular. So sound off down there, please and thanks. One last thing before we dive into this cauldron of nostalgia is I wanted to say that do have some ideas for future Goosebumps related videos on this channel. Since I loved the series so much as a kid, what would happen is that I would write my own stories kind of in the Goosebumps mold. I know for a fact that I have one intact Goosebumps ripoff story here in my possession, so if you would like to hear that story read for your dubious pleasure, then let us know in the comments if you would like to see me read my rip-off Goosebumps stories. I also generated a lot of story synopses, very much like the back copy on the books for a potential Goosebumps series. I'm perfectly fine with sharing the details of those. I don't think anything's really going to happen with them, and even if so, whatever, right? They're just synopses. They're not full fleshed out ideas. Copyright, don't steal them, please, but I really can't stop you from doing that. But in any case, if you would like to hear my rip-off Goosebumps stories, hear my rip-off Goosebumps ideas, sound off in the comments, and in the future I will share some of those dubious pleasures. Alright, baby, it's go time. I've got my list of Goosebumps books and summaries here, and we're just gonna dive into it and see what we got. Number 1, Welcome to Dead House. Front tagline, it will just kill you. Back tagline, look alive. Amanda and Josh think the old house they have just moved into is weird, spooky, possibly haunted. And the town of Dark Falls is pretty strange too. But their parents don't believe them. You'll get used to it, they say. Go out and make some new friends. So Amanda and Josh do. But these new friends are not exactly what their parents had in mind, because they want to be friends forever. So my main memory of Welcome to Dead House was that this was a gnarly book to start the series with. It is not the first book that I read from the series. Very interested to know if there are any people out there who actually grew up with the series in the sense of they truly read it from the beginning. So if Welcome to Dead House was your first read of the series, let us know, and let us know what your reaction was, because I think that reaction would be very, very different from somebody who came into the series midstream, kind of like I did, and I think many other people did in the past, because this is a comparatively speaking to the rest of the series and what it would be kind of known for as far as its tone was concerned, this is a gnarly book. It's pretty standard haunted house fare for the most part. You got your standard haunted-ish house. You got your family moving into a new abode. It's dark, it's spooky. The town is called Dark Falls, for Pete's sake. Kids in town are acting strangely, very Village of the Damned like. And as you find out, it's because they're already dead, and they want Amanda and Josh to be dead too. There's some barking ghosts in the background. Don't know if you can hear them, but I consider that a good omen for the rest of this video. You might have actually seen some of my haunting, billowing curtains out here on my back patio. So don't get too scared. They're not ghosts. They're just curtains, I think. But in any case, it's really standard going for the majority of the book from what I remember. It's not until the last leg of it that things really ratchet up, at least again, compared to other entries in the series. And by that, I mean, sorry, if I didn't mention it before, there are probably going to be some spoilers in this. Like I said, I'm going to be guessing the twists. I'm probably going to be revealing other details that might come as a shock for, you know, these 30-year-old children's books. But in any case, I'm just forging ahead. So they're dead, and when exposed to light, they melt. And I don't have the book here with me. I'm not going to read from it. Like I said, we're just barreling through here. I don't know how graphic or gratuitous R.L. Stine gets. I have a feeling that it's not that bad, but it does make mention of, I remember, skin melting. You know, there may have been some eyeballs that fell out of their sockets, but they basically melt into puddles of goo. And that was pretty shocking, having come from some other books in the series and going back to the beginning to take in Welcome to Dead House and seeing that happen. It was like, wow. Did not see that coming, Mr. Stine. It's actually detailed in the R.L. Stine autobiography. It came from Ohio. I recall that when he started first writing the Goosebumps books, his editor at Scholastic would come back to him and tell him to, pump it up a little, Bob. It's a little staid. It doesn't seem like there's too much horrific stuff actually going on, which is hilarious when you consider the fact that this man has made a name for himself on, spooky, creepy, horror genre type stuff. But his editor would come back and say, goose it up a little, give the kids a little scare. So if this was his first attempt to be like, okay, well, you told me, not too bad, Mr. Stine, not too bad. That is probably my most vivid memory of Welcome to Dead House. And as far as the twist is concerned, I think I do remember it is as Amanda and Josh are leaving Dark Falls, leaving the house, they spot the real estate agent in the window. The real estate agent having been one of the ghouls that was present at that final melting scene. And if I remember correctly, I think the real estate agent's name is Mr. Talbot. And the reason that I remember that is because I have a pretty vivid recollection that I envisioned this character as Lon Chaney Jr., who is the actor who played the Wolfman in the 1941 film. The character's name is Lawrence Talbot. So don't know if I'm even right in remembering that, but if that is the character's name, I think I had wondered at the time if that was a nod of sorts to classic horror cinema that R.L. Stine was giving there. So it just felt natural to envision Lon Chaney Jr. as this somewhat sinister, very sinister real estate agent. So as far as the tagline, let's see, we got "It will just kill you and look alive." So welcome to Dead House. How about make sure you knock on the front doornail. Doornail, because the saying is dead as a doornail. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I think my taglines are actually going to be worse, so let's just keep going. Number 2, stay out of the basement. Front tagline, something's waiting in the dark. Back tagline, live plants, ... Dead people? Dr. Brewer is doing a little plant testing in the basement. Nothing to worry about. Harmless, really. But Margaret and Casey Brewer are worried about their father, especially when they meet some of the plants he is growing down there. Then they notice that their father is developing plant-like tendencies. In fact, he is becoming distinctly weedy and seedy. Is it just part of their father's harmless experiment? Or has the basement turned into another little shop of horrors? Boy, where do we start with that back copy? Plant-like tendencies. Has he turned into a stalker? Plant-like tendencies? Has he turned into a stalker? Is he leafing unexpectedly? I'm sorry. But distinctly weedy and seedy. I don't know if, middle grade readers could have really appreciated the inclusion of seedy there. As you can tell, if I was the one writing this back copy, I probably couldn't resist the urge to put that in there. But, when you think seedy, that's not something that I would probably expect my middle grade readers to get, and I'm not sure if I would want them. CD paints a very particular portrait in my mind, kind of atomic age, half man, half plant, sci-fi horror thing is not the vibe. I think of like 42nd Street, right? Seedy, underground. I don't think of Walking Plant Man. Also, Little Shop of Horrors, that is the first, as far as I can tell, and what seemed like, even to me at the time as a kid, an endless array of variations on the phrase little blank of horrors. We got Little Pet Shop of Horrors. I think both Goosebumps did that, and one of the other series. I want to say, oh God, I don't know, Dead Time Stories, Shivers. I don't think it was Shivers. I want to say it might have been Dead Time Stories. But yeah, everybody, it seemed like, in the 90s and early aughts had to get on that little blank of horrors train. And this is, as far as I can tell, its first appearance. So a dubious start to an infamous tradition. Stay Out of the Basement is one of the books that I have really very vivid memories of. I really do remember reading that book. I was quite enraptured by it. I love kind of transformation stories. I'm like big into werewolves and stuffs like that. So the narrative of this father gradually, at least by appearances, turning into a plant or something of that nature going on, something of that mother nature going on, was kind of appealing to me. That he's growing leaves out of his head. There's a very vivid image from the book of the father underneath the kitchen sink. I remember digging into the plant food and just shoveling the dirt into his mouth. That really stuck out. That's one of those not necessarily graphic, not necessarily bloody images that still sticks out in your mind as this really kind of terrifying thing that these characters are going through. So it's kind of like has that same kind of shock value without necessarily shedding blood or tearing flesh. So good on Stine for kind of playing that fine line. The book cover here is actually not by our good friend Tim Jacobus. There were 2 or 3 covers done by different artists, and I want to say all the few covers that were not done by Tim Jacobus were done by Brock Stedman, as this one was. This is a really great cover. You can kind of tell when you look at it at second glance that it doesn't really look like Jacobus art, especially as it would develop over the years throughout the series. Really great cover. I love, and by the way, Brock Stedman actually did artwork throughout the 90s and early aughts. He's still a professional artist to this day, to my knowledge. But he did work on other series. He actually did covers for a lot of the Ghosts of Fear Street books. He has this really great photorealistic style that really sticks out in this artwork. I love the gnarled look of the hand coming out of the basement door, the way the knuckles are red and you see the little sprouts coming out of the fingers. Really, really beautiful stuff. It's a shame that he couldn't do more from this series. As iconic as Jacobus's art would become, this is just great stuff. So thank you, Mr. Stedman, for contributing to this series and our collective memories. But yeah, this was a good book. I remember really enjoying it. And as far as the twist is concerned, I have to admit, I think I do remember this because I saw the television episode not too long ago. And the twist is that even though Casey and Margaret think that they have successfully destroyed the evil plant dad and, restored their regular human father back to the family fold, what ends up happening, not sure what the logic is here, but who can say that for any of these? She's out in the garden one day, the home garden, and she hears her father's voice speaking to her from one or several of the flowers in the flower bed. So there's this question of, oh no, is it happening again? Is this an evil, plant manifestation, or is this really my father trapped in the flower bed? So pretty good twist. That's just one of the ones that makes you think like, oh, what really happened here? All right, let's try to figure out a good tagline or a bad tagline for Stay Out of the Basement. Okay, I think I got one. Growing up with Dad is a scream. Because growing up, he's a plant. Plants grow. Okay, yeah, moving on. Number 3, Monster Blood. Front tagline, it's a monster blood drive. It's not, but I guess that's a tagline. Back tagline, blood. Blood everywhere. While staying with his weird great aunt Catherine, judgy, Evan visits a funky old toy store and buys a dusty can of monster blood. It's fun to play with at first. And Evan's dog Trigger likes it so much, he eats some. But then Evan notices something weird about the green, slimy stuff. It seems to be growing, and growing, and growing. And all that growing has given the monster blood a monstrous appetite. I don't really remember enjoying this one that much as a kid, frankly. Just seemed kind of expected. I mean, there's really not much you can do with the formula. It's clearly a riff of the Blob, so you just have this amorphous slime that rolls around devouring animals and people and things. There's really not too much you can do to squeeze some, you know, suspense juice out of that concept. Really, the only thing you can do, or at least one of the things that you can do, which is what R.L. Stine does here, is if you want to spice things up, you can throw a total curveball and just come out of left field with basically a random twist. That twist being that weird Great Aunt Catherine is, of course, a little off kilter, a little eccentric, but she, as it turns out, I'm not sure if it's really the suspicion throughout the story. It turns out that she is not responsible for the monster blood or necessarily connected to it in any way. It's actually her cat. Her cat is a witch in disguise. I'm not sure if she had a curse placed on her and she has to roam around in cat form, or she just does that willingly of her own consent. I mean, why wouldn't you if you had that ability? But the cat turns into a human witch at the end of the story, and I think the monster blood is her concoction of some kind. I don't know how it ended up at the toy store, but she gets eaten by the monster blood. I do admit I watched the television adaptation to this book not too long ago. I had never seen the TV episode as a kid, but I do know that I recall that ending, at least as far as the cat and the witch was concerned, because I remember when I was watching the episode recently, I was wondering, okay, how is this aspect that I remember the story going to play out? And it played out wonderfully. No, it was goofy. It was goofy as all hell. But yeah, there's just not a lot going on in this story, I feel. It has this very listless quality to it. There are certain Goosebumps books that for some reason or another I associate with the summertime, and that may be because within the story that's the time that the story takes place is during the summer, or they just kind of give off a summery vibe for one reason or another. Believe it takes place during the summer because that would make sense. I imagine it was a situation where Evan's mother didn't want to deal with him whining for the entire summer, so she I'm knocking into my mic. She dropped Evan off at his weird Great Aunt Catherine's house during the summer, and then just yeah, Evan. Evan and his new friend just wandering around town looking for something to do and casually going to the toy store. It just seems like a summer thing to do. That's when kids turn into wanderers. They're just looking for something to do, and then unfortunately they end up getting into trouble, right? But in this one they get into a whole can of trouble. So if I had to come up with a new tagline for this story, let's see. Blood, blood everywhere. That makes me think of Psycho. Okay, I think I got one. This summer. That's it. That's the tagline. That's all I got this summer. Better watch out for your own goo. I feel like I set up the new taglining aspect of this video in the wrong way when I said that, I was going to try and improve on the taglines that were already here on the books. It would have been way more accurate if I said I was going to do them one worse and come up with taglines that stunk even more than the original book. So by that merit, I'm 3 for 3 right now, so let's see if I can keep that record going for all 62 books here. Number 4. Say cheese and die. Front tagline. One picture is worth 1,000 screams. It's pretty good. Back tagline. Every picture tells a story. It's kind of romantic. Greg thinks there is something wrong with the old camera he and his friends found. The photographs keep turning out wrong. Very wrong. like the snapshot Greg took of his father's new car that shows it totaled. And then Greg's father is in a nasty wreck. Things don't sound good for Greg's dad. Right from the back copy. But Greg's friends don't believe him. Sherry even makes Greg bring the camera to her birthday party and take her picture. Only Sherry's not in the photograph when it develops. Is Sherry about to be taken out of the picture? Permanently? Who is going to take the next fall for the evil camera? Who is going to take the next fall for the evil camera? That makes it sound like the camera is a member of the mob, and he's fixing to set somebody else up for something that he did. Who's going to take the fall for the camera? It's probably going to be you. So Say Cheese and Die is a classic Goosebumps book. The concept is one that appeared earlier in a Twilight Zone episode. It was one that actually Rod Serling wrote for the second season, I believe, called A Most Unusual Camera, where the concept was essentially the same. And that one, it wasn't necessarily that the pictures turned out wrong. It was more a question of the pictures anticipating something that was going to happen within the next few minutes. So it was a little bit of a fortune-telling device. So that's kind of the same idea here, except we get the sense, and I believe in the actual book, in the story, it's kind of cemented that this is an evil camera. It's a construction, I believe, of a rather nefarious character from the story called... Now, in in the TV episode, I believe they call him Spidey, which was brought to my attention by the wonderful, if albeit short-lived, podcast slash YouTube channel Boosegumps, who great pair of gents who were reviewing the episodes of the Goosebumps TV series. If you haven't heard of Boosegumps, definitely check them out. Great, hilarious material for the episodes that they did cover, and they covered both, I believe, Say Cheese and Die adaptations for the television show, and they pointed out that the weird guy's name in the episode is Spidey, but I'm almost positive, and I actually do have this book on the shelf, but we're not cheating. I'm just going off of memory here. I believe they just call him Spider. I'm almost positive that it's just Spider in the book, so it seemed like an odd choice for them to switch it to Spidey. Not that that is similar to the name of any other licensed character from any other franchise or creative universe. I guess that was just a decision they decided to make. But the camera, anyway, is evil. It warps the future, so and bends it to a dark will, so that these are not things that in a sense would have happened anyway, kind of like the situation was in the Twilight Zone episode. They're things that would have happened anyway. The characters are just kind of getting a jump on knowing these things before they happen. The camera distorts reality to essentially have a bad outcome. So basically, this is your monkey's paw riff where, if it's too good to be true, that means it is, and if you keep using it, things are just going to get worse and worse. It's still actually a nice, solid story, one of the most solid of the Goosebumps books, I would say, in that it kind of has a clear trajectory from start to finish. There are no, weird, goofy curveballs that come in the last act. No gods from the machine or anything like that. Like with Monster Blood, with a witch showing up at the last minute. It's just a nice story, if not especially fun. It's still somehow memorable. And this one is a little clearer in my mind because I recall reading this book aloud to my sisters, actually. They were in grade school at the time, and I just liked reading, and I loved reading aloud to people, so I grabbed Say Cheese and Die off the shelf, and that was one we read. And I think it's for that reason that one of the details and this will not be the last truly random detail from a Goosebumps book that I remember. One of the truly random details that I remember from Say Cheese and Die was, I believe it was the first time, and not that this is a common phrase, but it was the first time that I came across a description that R.L. Stine used that I really liked, that has always stuck with me. When he's describing Spider's abode, the kids are, breaking into the house, and they're, stealthily trekking across the lawn. R.L. Stine describes the lawn as weed choked. Weed choked. And I just always liked that. It was fun to say, and it just gave you a great image, and it was also kind of had a little sense of foreboding about it. Although when I hear weed choke, that just makes it sound like somebody who had a really bad toke, Weed choke. But yeah, anyway, Say Cheese and Die, lovely book. Let's move on. Whoops, forgot to do a tagline. I don't know why I came up with that additional concept for this video, as if it's not got enough going on for it. I'm always just adding stuff to it, and I'm going to regret now that I need to hold myself to coming up with a new tagline. All right, Say Cheese and Die. Pictures. Let's see. Say Cheese and Die. Okay. Okay, I think I got one. And this is in the same spirit as something from the back copy here. Okay, new tagline for Say Cheese and Die. Beware the camera that frames you and hangs you. See? Remember who's going to take the fall for the evil camera? Well, that's because that evil camera is going to frame you and he's going to hang you. All right. Number 5. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Front tagline. What will wake the dead? Has a nice sing-song quality to it. Back tagline. Something dead has been here. Pretty good. Gabe just got lost in a pyramid. 1 minute, his crazy cousin Sari. Sari? Didn't we just have a character named Sherry? Come on, Robert. 1 minute, his crazy cousin Sari was right ahead of him in the pyramid tunnel. The next minute, she disappeared. But Gabe isn't alone. Someone else is in the pyramid too. Someone or something. Gabe doesn't believe in the curse of the mummy's tomb, but that doesn't mean that the curse isn't real. Does it? So in a lot of ways, I feel like that back copy is the perfect representation of this book, because as you might have noticed, it described one situation that you might not think could be stretched to fill out even a middle grade children's chapter book. And if that's what you thought, then you would be absolutely right. Because the thing is, I do not have fond memories of this book or its sequel. That's kind of a spoiler alert for one of the upcoming entries, but I'm just putting it out there right now. I did not like The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Even as a kid, I thought it dragged worse than one of the mummy's own lame legs. There's a picture of the mummy on the cover. Tim Jacobus, thanks very much. There's a picture of the mummy on the cover, and as a kid, you want some mummy action. You want to see that big old bandage full get up and shamble around, and even if that isn't the most menacing figure, it's still cool. That's the monster. That's what you're here to see, and there's just not a lot of that going on in this book. Again, all of this is from memory. I could be dead wrong, so please let me know in the comments below if that's the case. But truly, I do not remember much of anything useful happening in this book. It's really read more kind of like a lame, half-ass young Indiana Jones adventure, where I think there was some run-ins with like spiky pits and like tar pools. I think basically all of the tired tropes of Egyptian tomb booby trap paraphernalia that you've seen in dozens of other stories. It seemed like it was more involved in the intrigue, so to speak, of like I think there was a villain character, and forgive me because I don't know in the story if the villain character was wearing a fez, but just because my mind is branded from the Hammer mummy films, as well as the Universal ones, I just associate, villain in a mummy movie. It's unfortunately a foreign person wearing a fez. Yeah, in any case, not a fun book, not a great book. And like I said, that back copy really does do it justice. It's like, wow, that sounds like a boring book, and you would be absolutely right. So put that baby back on the shelf and move on. So, can we think of a better, or can we think of an additional tagline? Let's see. What will wake the dead? And something dead has been here. Okay. Let's see. Honestly, a good tagline I think for this book would be "Let the dead rest and move on." Number 6. Let's get invisible. Front tagline: Now you see him, now you don't. It's an obvious pick, but it is a good one. We gotta admit it. Back tagline: Disappearances can be deadly. Okay. On Max's birthday, he finds a sort of magic mirror in the attic. You're the back copy of the book. Why don't you tell us? Sort of magic mirror. It can make him become invisible. Okay, so that sounds pretty magic. So Max and his friends start playing Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Every phrase of this back copy I'm not too sure about. Until Max realizes that he's losing control, staying invisible a little too long, having a harder time coming back. Getting invisible is turning into a very dangerous game. The next time Max gets invisible, will it be forever? So I know I made a comment earlier about the first of many appearances of the little blank of horrors, little shop of horrors, and seeing variations of that throughout the books and the back copy. This is actually, I think, marks the appearance of a true blue. They are going to beat this horse to death and then revive it and then beat it to death again, trope that we're going to see. And that is the addition and inclusion of the phrase forever. In fact, I think we came across it earlier. I don't know. I'm not going to read what I read already. But yes, forever. Because as we know, with the Goosebumps books, death was never really on the table. The characters were always essentially safe. They never went there. Nobody ever died. To be fair, I feel like, and again, I'm biased because my main exposure to juvenile literature then and now of that time period was mainly Goosebumps, so this could not be true or accurate. But I feel like most juvenile literature, middle grade books, I should say, they didn't broach the idea of death in that way, unless they were, things like Bridge to Terabithia, where that was kind of the crux of the narrative. But I'm talking about like series fiction, kind of consumable literary product of the ilk that Goosebumps was. Death was never really on the table. You would have to find ways to skate around that, and what better way to kind of reformat an intangible, ambiguous idea of death, which was, of course, the great unknown, with kind of another great unknown, and just say, well, this is forever. It's kind of a soft pedal way of saying death when you think about it, because death is forever, but these various states, such as invisibility, that characters may find them in, or, lost somewhere forever, or kept somewhere forever against their will, it's essentially death, but we have to use the kind of softer terminology of forever. Oh no! So let's get invisible. The book. To be honest, I can't say that there is too much from this book that I truly remember as far as hard and fast details. I remember watching the television adaptation as a kid and being pretty heavily influenced by that. As a matter of fact, the story that I alluded to earlier, my rip-off Goosebumps story, is, it can be said, pretty much a rip-off specifically of this book, Let's Get Invisible. In fact, the story is called Evil Mirror, because I had no time to play around with fancy verbiage and exclamation points, let's get invisible, no. Evil Mirror. I'm here to tell you what the story is really about. There's no sort of magic mirror in that story. It's an evil mirror. I'm telling you right from the top. But one of the things that I was enamored with this story was the concept of the other dimension, the mirror world. In particular, a mirror world where everybody had a double. And of course, in the mirror world, your double is the opposite of who you are in this dimension. So typically that would boil down to it was an evil doppelganger from the other dimension. I just found that concept very interesting, and I obviously found it interesting enough to steal it and adapt it into my own story and play with it. So yeah, if that's something that y'all would like to hear in the future, let me know. I think this cover is one of the other Brock Stedmans. It could be Tim Jacobus. It doesn't. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm so bad when it comes to art. This one's a tough call for me. I could definitely tell with Stay Out of the Basement that was definitely not Tim Jacobus. And I knew it's one of the other early ones. Maybe I'm off the mark by one or two. But I know the next one is definitely Tim Jacobus. I'm not sure if this one is. This may be the other Brock Stedman. Let me know if I failed that test. Fun. All right. New tagline. Let's see. Now you see, now you don't is good. Disappearances can be deadly. I'm not sure how many kids would get that one, but still pretty good. Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can make it worse. I hope these kids are being safe without their trans parents around. Oh my god, that's terrible. And when you think about it, that could have a totally different meaning. Okay, how about gone in 60 sentences? Just ignore that one. Let's move on. Number 7, Night of the Living Dummy. Front tagline, he walks, he stalks. Back tagline, he's no dummy. Lindy names the ventriloquist dummy she finds Slappy. Slappy is kind of ugly, but he's a lot of fun. It's going to be the new headline of my dating profile. Kind of ugly, but a lot of fun. Lindy's having a great time learning to make Slappy move and talk. But Chris is jealous of all the attention her sister is getting. It's no fair. Why does Lindy always have all the luck? Chris decides to get a dummy of her own. She'll show Chris. As Troy Steele writes, not a typo, that's what the back copy really says. Chris will show Chris. Then weird things begin to happen. Nasty things. Evil things. No way a dummy can be causing all the trouble. Or is there? Once again, another trope that we're going to be seeing a lot of on the back copy, the ending question. We're going to present something to you, say that it couldn't possibly be true, but then we're going to ask the question anyway. Or could it? Or is there? Or will you? Or won't you? Or do I? Night of the Living Dummy. What more can you possibly say? Classic, primo, first run, and by that I mean like first of the dozen or so books that we can definitively say that R.L. Stine planned himself from start to finish. Yeah, look it up. This is almost as good as it gets. I say almost because there are a couple special, interesting qualifiers when it comes to this book. First of all, let's speak to this cover art. I'm gonna feel really bad if this was the Brock Stedman and I just totally robbed him of credit for one of the greatest covers of the Goosebumps series in totality. So I'll just apologize to everybody. Sorry, Brock. Sorry, Tim. I'm gonna misattribute so many things. So that's something to look forward to. An incredible cover. I can tell you, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, this book was one of the Goosebumps book we had in hardcover library binding in my school library, my elementary school library. And anytime I saw this one on the shelf, it terrified me. I truly do think that out of all the Goosebumps covers, this one is legitimately the most fright-inducing, because this is, of course, nowhere near things like scary stories that tell in the dark of just like face-melting horror staring right at you in the eyeballs. But this is probably as close as a series got that I can think of to really scaring the bejesus out of kids with its cover art specifically. I mean, just because look at it, my goodness. This dummy looks like it is hiding in the dark corner of your closet, and he is just sitting there, smiling in the dark, waiting for you to reach your hand into the closet, and he's either gonna grab your fingers with his cold, nubby little wooden hands, or he's gonna chomp down on your little fingers with those pearly teeth of his. Cannot anticipate anything good happening, encountering this dummy. But in a way, this cover artwork is kind of controversial because, as you may. Sorry, I just remembered that I did not guess the twist of Let's Get Invisible. This is going to happen a lot, I think. So I'm just going to move on with my life. Sorry about that. But anyway, this cover artwork is kind of controversial because for those of you who have read the story, who have read number 7, Night of the Living Dummy, and this blew my mind as a kid once I finally plucked up enough courage to pluck that off the shelf and hunker down and read the thing, was Slappy is not the main villain in the story. Yeah, I know, right? He's not the main villain in the story, which is mind-boggling because that's him on the cover. The tuxedoed, nastily grimacing dummy who looks like he is just up to no good all of the time. He's not the one causing all the trouble in the book. It's Mr. Wood, which, yeah, have at it with that. It's Mr. Wood, who is the other dummy, the neglected dummy, who has been, I believe, cast aside in favor of Slappy in the story. He is the one who's getting up late hours in the night and causing all this mischief and havoc. And he is the one that our plucky heroes battle at the very end. And Slappy only makes his appearance as part of the twist, which they reverse in the television adaptation. Rightfully, they're like, wow, Bob, this was kind of a weird way for you to go about it. I mean, I guess we kind of get the surprise that, oh, it's not the new nasty looking dummy that's up to the tricks. It's the old, somewhat lovable dummy that's been doing all this crazy stuff. But we think kids are going to be scared one way or the other, no matter what dummy it is. So maybe let's make the cover attraction the star of the show and have Mr. Wood awaken at the end of the story as the final twist. But yeah, that blew my mind as a kid that I was so terrified of this guy in particular from the cover, and I read the book only to come and find out that, it's not even him doing all this stuff. He's basically asleep, for all we know, throughout the story. Now, there is a good chance that I've misremembered, and the book is, in fact, just like the television episode, in that it is Slappy throughout the whole story, but I am almost certain that, because why else would I have had that reaction like, what, WTH is going on here? Where's Slappy? What is going on? I think it is reversed, so to speak, in the book. And yeah, just totally mind-boggling. Still, a cool story from what I remember. I believe there's a spaghetti dinner, which seems to be a staple of R.L. Stine's fiction, and definitely, for whatever reason, kind of gives me the warm, cozy feeling of, yeah, I remember spaghetti dinners with my family when the world was so innocent and I could just get by being a kid. I don't know, something about spaghetti dinners that just stirs up that feeling in me. Don't remember too many other details aside from, of course, Slappy's insults, but I think I may be confusing that with other books in this series where Slappy is actually doing all this stuff. So yeah, that's it for our friend Slappy. Now, if we had to come up with another tagline, I would say, okay, I think I got one. This dummy has his hand in some dark deeds. Ah, Number 8. The girl who cried, "Monster!" Front tagline. She's got the monster of all problems. Back tagline. She's telling the truth. ... But no one believes her. I love how vaguely whiny these taglines sound. Especially this last one. It's like, this summer, Rob Schneider's gonna find out that telling the truth about monsters isn't as easy as it looks. I would totally want to see an adaptation of the story with Rob Schneider as the girl who cried monster. Just putting that out there, Netflix. Lucy likes to tell monster stories. She's told so many that her friends and family are sick of it. Then one day, Lucy discovers a real, live monster. The librarian in charge of the summer reading program. Hits too close to home. Too bad Lucy's told so many monster tall tales. Too bad no one believes a word she says. Too bad the monster knows who she is and is coming after her next. So with this one, I'm pretty sure that as a kid, I saw the TV episode before I ever read the book. So my impressions of the story definitely carried over from that first exposure over into the book. So it was one of those situations where as I was reading the story, I was kind of picturing the visuals from the television episode the whole time. In particular, the appearance of the librarian character once he shed his human disguise, his human shell in the TV episode. He looks like that weird yellow slug character. He's got the eye stalks coming out the top here and the little mouth of fangs and just the warty toad-like skin. So when I came to read the story, I think that's what I was picturing. I honestly can't remember if that's how R.L. Stine originally described him, if there were any changes from book to adaptation, and if there was, I don't remember what the original monster looked like. I'm sure it was great. Good job, Bob. Kind of a funny story with this book, when I made mention before about that little factoid from R.L. Stine's autobiography with regards to his editor reaching out to him to say, Bob, you really need to goose up these stories, try to make them a little more horrifying. And I think that's how we ended up with the melty climax of Welcome to Dead House. Here, I remember him mentioning that it was his actual intention for the monster in the story to eat children, to eat other children. And I think there was a little bit of a role reversal there where the editor came back and said, okay, maybe not that. Changed it to bugs. And he had a little smarmy line in the autobiography where he said, I actually thought that eating bugs was a lot grosser than eating kids. It's like, okay, Bob. So yeah, believe it or not, this creepy critter was actually going to chow down on some kids in the original draft of this story. This is a fun one. This is kind of a common theme, and especially scary stories or ghost stories written for children. The boy who cried wolf scenario of somebody who has witnessed this unbelievable creature existing in real life, and then trying to convince the people around them that this is a real threat and a real danger, and not being able to do so, either because the story is just so fantastical on its face, or it's indicative of that character's previous attempts to play practical jokes or maybe get out of trouble. It's a nice theme to play with. You can squeeze a fair amount of suspense juice, there it is again. You can squeeze a fair amount of suspense juice out of that concept. Just because it has this very Hitchcockian flavor of, there's that rear window aspect that this person or this other individual that you have this secret knowledge of eventually becomes privy to the fact that you have that knowledge. So then it becomes this race against time for you to convince somebody around you that you need help or that this is a real threat before that person gets to you. Why do I want to say that there was also spaghetti dinner in this story? I don't know. Maybe it was both books. Maybe it was one of them. I can't tell. Let's say both. Speaking of dinner, though, the twist here being is that Lucy Why do I think her name is Samantha? Lucy is actually a member of a family of monsters. And for some reason, I saw the TV adaptation not too long ago. For some reason, I thought that fact was unknown to her in the story. Like, when she witnesses her parents vamp out, so to speak, and eat the librarian because he happens to be their favorite cuisine. They eat other monsters, in particular, I guess, buggy guys like him. I, for some reason, thought that that was the reveal to her that, oh, I'm from a family of monsters and I am a monster. But I think in the television adaptation, she knew it the whole time, which of course raises the question in retrospect that if she herself is a monster and knew she was a monster, especially, and was using monster stories to terrify her little brother and play jokes on people, why would she do that if that is who she herself was? I guess maybe one reason that those stories might have terrified her little brother is because, as it turns out, monsters do eat other monsters, so maybe those were the kinds of monsters that she was telling about in her stories. Alright, so anyway, let's see if we can come up with another tagline. So the one on the back cover is pretty much just an extra detail about the story. She's telling the truth, but no one believes her. Whereas the front one is kind of a jokey one. She's got the monster of all problems. Okay, I think I got one. So the monster villain in the story is the librarian, you remember? Okay. Lucy's about to check out something at the library that she will regret for the rest of her life. That is a long tagline, but I think you see where I was going with it. Okay. Number 9. We're just zooming through these, aren't we? Not even at number 10 yet. Number 9. Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Front tagline. It's the little camp of horrors. Ah, I told you. Back tagline. Those scary stories about camp are all coming true. The food isn't great. The counselors are a little strange. And the camp director, Uncle Al, seems sort of demented. Okay, so Billy can handle all that. Go Billy. But then his fellow campers start to disappear. What's going on? Why won't his parents answer his letters? What's lurking out there after dark? Camp Night Moon is turning into Camp Nightmare. For real. And Billy might be next. So this is the first of one of R.L. Stine's many camping stories that he would explore, not only in this original run of the 62 Goosebumps books, but in other Goosebumps spin-off like Goosebumps 2000, the Give Yourself Goosebumps, Choose Your Own Adventure books, and also in some of his other series like Nightmare Room also had a camping book. I think it was called Camp Nowhere. And the funny thing about that is I actually read just recently, actually, that for all these camping stories, R.L. Stine never once spent a day camping himself. He didn't like the outdoors as a kid. I think on Twitter he said something akin to, I think I hugged a tree once in my life. So not an outdoorsy type, but yet we get all these camping stories from him, which in a way I kind of love. As a kid, I certainly loved because I thought at the time, wow, this guy is just pulling from a well of expertise, and I am getting to experience the visceral thrills of a summer camp without actually having to go myself. And when you look back at it, it's kind of telling that all the camps sound the same. I assume a lot of summer camps are similar to each other, but it's like they're almost always doing the standard summer camp stuff. There's the kayaking, there's the archery, there's the crafting, there's the mess hall, there's the bunks. Everything is kind of described in the same way, book in and book out. But still, as a kid, I found it fascinating, this concept of going away somewhere, this idea of going out in the wilderness, still with some adult supervision, but camp just has a different ring to it, that you're out in the wild, more or less by yourself, more or less with a bunch of strangers, and there's just this feeling of independence that comes with it, that it's not school, it's not your parents' house, it's not your friend's house, it's not your neighborhood, it's somewhere out there. And out there, anything can happen, good and bad. And that was just kind of part of the attraction of the camping stories. Honestly, with the book, I don't really remember much in the way of how I reacted to it, reading it. Again, I think this was a case where I had probably seen the television episode before I read the book. I couldn't tell you if that gave me a big jump on the story or not. In a sense, I was a little disappointed that the story didn't live up to the cover art and that there wasn't a true, genuine boogeyman lurking around the campsite, slashing into the little campers' tents and haunting the bejesus out of them. What we come to find out is that this camp is actually a little bit of a training base for explorers, space explorers, to go out into the vast unknown to explore other planets. And wouldn't you know it, the mission that our hero is being trained for is a mission to the planet Earth. So this is kind of a play on a twist that we have seen in media such as the Twilight Zone episodes like Third from the Sun, where we're led to believe that this very normal looking cast of characters, very normal looking landscape, just kind of inherently, intrinsically takes place on the planet Earth, only to find out that, oh my goodness, no it doesn't. There is another planet out there with life forms on it, close to our own. Yeah, wow, what a twist. Oh my goodness. M. Night Shyamalan worthy, right? But yeah, not too much about this book that I really remember, and I can't say that I would necessarily recommend it to anyone who is looking to engage or enter this series, whatever their age may be, just because it's a good standard pop boiler of sorts, but not too much to see here. I would say come for the camping frills and then leave when you're done, because there's not much to stick around for. All right, tagline time. So it's a little camp of horrors, so they're already resting on their laurels. Let's see if we can be just as lazy. Camping, camping, camping. All right. Okay, I got one. Kumbaya, my dark lord. Like I said, guys, I never said they were going to be good. Never said they were going to be good. Although I gotta admit, I think that one's pretty good. Oh my god, that took forever. It's me again, the guy who's been talking for an eternity on this video. When I first started on this video, I naively thought that I would not be spending as much time on each title as I ended up doing. Granted, I really only spend 5 minutes tops on each of the entries in the series. I was never really good at math in school, so I guess I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that 5 minutes times 62 books is going to be a really long video. Now, I never thought I was going to do all these in one video. I thought I could accomplish this in about 2 videos, split 62 into 31. Then you have 2 videos. That's how math works. But it's pretty clear to me at this point that that is not going to be the case going forward. I didn't even get to a full 10 in this episode. How sadistic is that of me? Couldn't even do first 10 Goosebumps episodes, only got up to 9. So I can't really say for certain what the breakdown is going to end up being for future episodes. Maybe I'll do 5 books, maybe I'll do 11 books. I'm just throwing curveballs out here like I'm R.L. Stine, you know, witch cat and all these other crazy things. So I am going to call it a day for now. We spend a lot of time kind of setting up the premise of this series because Lord knows I can't spend anything less than 20 minutes setting up a scenario, let alone actually executing it. So hopefully in future episodes we won't have to go through that whole rigmarole. We're just going to dive right in. Hey, we're just barreling through the Goosebumps series. You know what you're here for. I know what I'm here for. We're just here to do this thing and get it done. And hopefully future videos won't be as long as a feature film from the 30s and 40s. But at any rate, I really appreciate if you've stuck around for this long. You made it to the end of the video. I feel like I should be throwing up confetti or giving you a prize. I have absolutely nothing for you, so sorry. But thank you. I have nothing but gratitude for you. Thank you for sticking to the end of this video. video. Hope you come back for the future episodes where we tackle the entire Goosebumps series. Again, if you have any recollections of your own, any truths that you got to come at me and say, you totally got this wrong, Jose, I'm going to slam you with the truth here now in the comments section. Let us know down there. Send us an email at our email address, which is, what is our email address? hauntedcruise@gmail.com. So the name of the channel, hauntedcruise@gmail.com. If you have suggestions for future episodes, requests for future episodes, be they Goosebumps, Creepy Kid Book, or anything at all related to spooky dooky stuff, go ahead and let us know via email. And again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Did you think I was going to say something like viewer beware? Give me more credit than that. Come on.